Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, quite a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are pretty solid all round. In recent years though, the business side of the company has really struggled. That has affected the quality of some of the beer, although some of them have remained pretty consistent, so I think saying it's a little bit hit and miss with these guys is a good way to put it. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have had from this brewery before. It's one that I know they can do very, very well. I've heard good things about this particular beer, and it's also somewhat of a special release for these guys as well, from what I understand, one of their anniversary beers, and it is supposed to be pretty nice actually, and I'm quite glad that I was able to get a hold of one of these to review for you before this company undergoes some quite significant changes. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head a little bit to the north of me here in Kowloon up to the new territories, Pho Tan to be precise, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Carbon Brews. So this particular beer is called A Year to Forget. It comes in at 9.9% ABV. It's an Imperial Stout. This one's barrel aged and it's been brewed with blueberry, cinnamon, lemon zest and some cacao nibs. And I think this was released in 2020 as their second anniversary beer, but do correct me on that in the comment section below if I have the year wrong, but this one is definitely one of their anniversary beers from what I understand. This one I actually picked up at the Carbon Brews bar closing party in Central. I think I got it for like $125 or something like that because they were trying to get rid of all the old stock. So yeah, I got a really good deal on this one, and I wanted, of course, to use it for a review. So here we are. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Carbon Brews before, and we will add a few more to that list at some point in the near future because I did get a few more beers at that kind of closing party. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things. Because we're adding quite a lot to that regularly, of course, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. So yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Carbon Brews once again then. So, Carbon Brews, as I've told you before, was founded back in 2018, and the company is located in Pho Tan in the New Territories in Hong Kong, just a little bit to the kind of northeast of Kowloon. So the original brewery was on the 1st and 10th floor of the Union Industrial Centre in Pho Tan in the New Territories, and it was previously the Hong Kong brewery of Kyuchi Brewery from Ibaraki over in Japan, who were brewing their Hitachino Nest beers there, and they established this facility originally back in 2015. The original general manager of the brewery was Chris Wong, who some of you might know from Heroes Beer Company. He's from the US originally and was previously an accountant by trade, but he also co-founded HK Brewcraft and Heroes Beer Company, like I said, but this was all while he was working for Hitachino's Hong Kong operations. But Carbon Brews basically took over the brewery in late 2018, and they were established as a completely new brand. And the name Carbon actually comes from Pho Tan, the area where they're located, because tan translates into English as carbon. And these guys, of course, built a very good reputation for themselves early on for being quite experimental under Chris and Connor Hogan's guidance. So they had a tap room in Central in Hong Kong, which opened in 2022, but this closed in 2024. They still have their tap room over in Akasaka in Tokyo in Japan though, so that's somewhere that I will need to go and visit and do an out and about video for you at some stage. But in 2023, these guys took over the Double Haven Brewing / Dragon Water facility just down the road in the Wah Wai Industrial Centre. There, the brewery operates a 35 hectolitre brew kit, and the current head brewer is Diaz Jumashev, and he's joined in the brewing team by Justin Chan, Lydia Kuzmina, Harry Liu, and Tommy Liu as well, from what I understand. And as of November 2024, these guys have produced 140 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, but like I say, this brewery is about to undergo some quite significant changes. From what I understand, these guys are going to move over to Japan to start brewing, so we'll just need to see what happens with that and who of the brewing team actually moves over there with them, because yeah, from what I understand, Carbon Brews has not been very well run as a business for quite some time, so hopefully they can get somebody in to actually stabilise the ship and make things profitable again, because you know, some of their beers have been pretty good actually. So yeah, hopefully things go a little bit better for them over in Japan. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Carbon Brews for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, now I can breathe. There we go. Had a bit of a trouble filming this one because the light was coming in, so we had to put some towels up on the windows and things just to actually balance out the light. That's just how it goes when you try and film in the afternoons in Hong Kong. But yeah, there we go. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up. There you can see at the top of the bottle there the Carbon Brew symbol. Quite nice artwork on this one. I do like the thing about the chairs kind of being stacked and stuff like that. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, plain black top on this one, and it tells you the ingredients list on the side here, which I think is pretty cool. I always like that about the carbon labels and things. So yeah, as I said earlier, this one comes in at 9.9% ABV. It's a barrel-aged Imperial Stout. It doesn't actually say what barrel it was aged in, but we'll probably be able to tell from the taste actually. But the malt base in this one is pale wheat, oats, amber, Cara Munich, chocolate, Carafa 2 and Carafa 3. Those of course are beautiful malts from the Weirmann company in Bamberg in Franconia, northern Bavaria. The hops are Chinook from the US and East Kent Golden from England. It's got a Chico yeast, I'm guessing that's Chico, California. Then the adjuncts in this one are blueberry, cinnamon, lemon zest and cacao. And yeah, should be quite interesting this. 9.9% ABV, a year to forget. I believe the second anniversary beer. Oh no, it says 2020. So yeah, no, I was right, yeah, 2020. One which will be the second anniversary beer. So let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. I'm very curious about this. So, a little bit of smoke on the opening then, and we'll get this guy out and into the glass. Ooh, that does look pretty nice actually. There we are. So I think that's enough to have a look at for the moment. I don't know how well you're going to see that on the camera, but maybe you can see, let me put it the other way, then I think you can see it a bit better. You can see the two rings on the bottle there where the beer has been kind of sitting. You can see it's got, that's those solid rings inside the bottle there because the beer's been sitting quite a wee while. So we are going to notice some kind of aging characteristics from this one, and usually with Imperial Stouts, if they sit for a while, they develop this really kind of silky quality. So yeah, we'll probably see that in this one quite a bit, because at this stage of filming, it's about, yeah, it's at least 4 years old, nearer 5 actually. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, the beer has poured pretty much as you would expect from almost any Imperial Stout. Not too much head on this one, which you know you would expect when it's barrel aged and when it's been sitting for so long, but you can see we've got a nice little quarter finger of a frothy, I would say fawn coloured head just around the edge of the glass there. I'll bring that up so you can have a little look at it there. If it will zoom in, is it going to work? Seems not. There you go. So it has got this little fawn coloured head to it there. There you are. Now it's doing it. So yeah, you can see that nice kind of little small fluffy bubbles on the top of the liquid there, and then it gets a wee bit more bubbly the further up that you go. But yeah, lovely sort of dark ebony rosewood colour to this one, which is what you'd expect. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. And yeah, but when it comes to black beers like this, I don't think the adjuncts are going to affect the colour all that much. I've only ever seen that happen once, and that was with a beer that contained beets from Puhasta Pruulikoda in Tartu in Estonia, and it had this purple tinge to it. So I think, yeah, blueberries and cinnamon and lemon zest aren't going to do all that much to the colour of a big black imperial stout like this one. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation. If we shine the light through this one, it does have a little bit of a kind of Coca-Cola, Pepsi sort of tint to it. But yeah, dark ebony rosewood colour is a good way to describe this this particular beer. So yeah, all in all, appearance wise, there's nothing really surprising about this one actually. It gives you everything you would expect from an imperial stout. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the aroma of this one. I don't think we need to say anything more about the appearance of this beer. Oh, that smells nice. It does. Now, when you sugar it up, you do start to get the little bit of sharpness from the blueberry and the lemon zest in this one. You can smell it, and you can also smell a wee bit of the cinnamon. But other than that, it's kind of really classic, old school barrel aged imperial stout. This one. This is really, really nice. It's a little bit nostalgic for me, this beer. It kind of reminds me, it kind of takes me back to when I was starting to get into craft beer, in all honesty. So yeah, but it gives you everything you'd want from an imperial stout. You've got that lovely bit of roasty toasty backbone to it. You've got the big sort of bready cakey sort of notes, some brown sugar, some chocolate, a little bit of yeastiness in there, and that wee bit of fruitiness and sort of grassiness and things from the hops as well. Yeah, this is really interesting actually. So let's just try and break the aroma down for you then and describe it that little bit more in depth, could we say. So the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of woody character in there. I'm still struggling a little bit. I think it's probably bourbon barrels, maybe a little bit of rum barrel as well that this one's been aged in. So you can smell a little bit of that really smooth American oak coming out of this one. As I've often said, European oak has a little bit more dryness to it than American oak. So for me, there's that little bit of kind of smooth American oak in there, and that brighter brown sugar that you get from bourbon as opposed to Scotch whiskey, which is a bit drier. So yeah, you can smell the bourbon barrel in this one. There's a wee hint of vanilla coming out of that too. And then yeah, you smell a little bit of that roasty toasty, well fired bread crust coming out of this one. So yeah, that roasty toasty, well fired bread crust is in there. And then on top of that, there's a mix of different things going on. There's a wee bit of like an almost German rye bread that's going to come from your carafa. And I would say the other thing about the bread crust in this one is that it's a little bit dry but not too aggressive, and that's one of the characteristics of carafa. The Cara Munich, I think, is the one that's going to be giving you that more sort of German rye bready character. So yeah, you've got this lovely mix of German rye bread and a sort of sweet wholemeal brown bread in there, and then you can smell like a sort of like chocolate cakey type character above that. So yeah, you've got this lovely smooth kind of chocolate cakey type note coming out of this one, which is it's like a chocolate sponge almost. I think it's the oats, a combination of the oats and wheat, that are going to give you that kind of cakey note in this beer. But there's a good little bit of chocolate in there. There's some really nice there's a mix of chocolate in there. So you can smell a little bit of a darker chocolate, you know, a sort of 60-70% cocoa. I mean, it's not right at the end of at the dark end of the spectrum, but there's also little elements of kind of milkier chocolate coming out of this one as well. So yeah, kind kind of darker chocolate in there, a little bit of a more milky chocolate as well. A few nutty elements to this beer too, come to think of it. And then yeah, you can smell some of the kind of brown sugary characters coming out of this beer as well. So when it comes to Imperial Stouts, there are a few ways that you can play with this style. You know, you can do a double mash, which is going to give you a big sort of sticky mouthfeel. You can do some barrel aging, which is going to reduce your mouthfeel a bit, but give you some really nice sort of infused flavours. Or you can do something along the lines of you can do a little bit of a longer wort boil as well, which is going to give you a nice kind of leathery character to your brown sugars, but it will make the beer that little bit drier. So these are the main ways that you can play with your Imperial Stouts. The brown sugary side of this beer for me is quite the brown sugary side of this beer for me is quite leathery. You can really smell that in this one, the lovely kind of leathery brown sugary notes. Sort of a toasty brown sugary character in this well. So yeah, it's toasty, it's leathery, some nice kind of treacle and molasses in there. Yeah, good little bit of treacle to it, a little bit of big oily molasses too. And then yeah, I think there's a wee bit of like biscuity character coming out of it as well. There's definitely a wee bit of that in there. I think that covers the middle of the nose in this one, in all honesty. You do get a little bit, I mean the adjuncts in here, you get a little bit of the cinnamon, but not too much. It's not really that noticeable in the aroma of the beer. I think if I didn't know it was in there, I probably wouldn't have picked it up, in all honesty. The blueberry and the lemon zest, when you first take the aroma in, you get a wee bit of the sharpness out of those, but they kind of fade away and are covered up by other things, I would say, as well. At the back of the nose, you get some really nice yeasty character out of the beer, and for me, the yeasty side of this beer, it is a little bit more, it's a mix of like kind of caramel sponge cake and a sort of wholemeal brown bready sort of note. So there's some really interesting things going on in that regard. I think we'll get more complexity out of that side of the beer and when we actually taste the thing. On the hoppy side of the aroma though, you have to remember that hops will drop out of the beers, especially in Imperials. Well, Imperial Stouts are not the most hop-forward styles of beer anyway, but the longer you age them, the more the green component and the hoppy characters will drop out, and that's quite obviously been the case with this one. You do get a little bit of that kind of earthiness that you would expect from English hops, the East Kent Goldings in there. You can smell a little bit of that. There's a wee bit of herbal character and woodiness in there as well. But yeah, you do still have the remnants of some nice kind of floral aromaticity and also some kind of grassiness too, which is really interesting. So yeah, I like the way that all kind of goes together. So yeah, lovely nice kind of floral aromaticity and a good little bit of kind of grassiness out of it as well. Yeah, I think that's everything to say about the green component, in honesty. The fruity side of the beer then, just to round off the aroma, for me, you can smell some of the, Chinook, when you put it in a big Imperial Stout like this, it's going to give you some like figgy notes, a little bit of like, it's going to give you a little bit of blackcurrant and stuff like that. And you can definitely smell that in here. There is a little bit of plum, there is a little bit of fig, blackcurrant, and things like this. So, yeah, that's in there. But you can smell that little bit sharper character from the adjunct blueberry. And there is a wee bit of the lemon zesty character in the nose of this one. So, yeah. The way that all goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So it gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting aroma, this. I'm just very, very curious to try this one now, because everything about this beer is quite classic, but it just has this little bit of sharpness on the top of the nose, I would say. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time for us to try this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the A Year to Forget, a 9.9% barrel-aged Imperial Stout with blueberry, cinnamon, lemon zest and cacao nibs added into it from Carbon Brews in Fotan, in here in in the new territories here in the Hong Kong SAR, the 2nd anniversary beer for these guys, if I'm not mistaken. Slàinte, skål, and cheers. That's quite interesting. This one, it's got a little bit of an impact flavour to it, but I think it mellows out really, really nicely. In fact, yeah, like when you take it in, it has a good little bit of, it has a little bit of sharpness to it, which is obviously going to be from the lemon zest and from the adjunct blueberries, but the way everything else mellows out in this one is really quite nice, and in that aftertaste that starts to build, it really does it resembles what you would expect from the aroma. So that's pretty interesting in this one for sure. Yeah. But thumbs up to Carbon Brews for this one. They can obviously make stouts that can sit for a good while, then turn out to be really, really quite nice. So yeah, this is growing on me the more that I drink of it, I have to say that. So let's do as we always do. We'll go through the beer and through the stages of the palate and break the flavour down for you that little bit more. Middle third of the palate then, the backbone of the beer, you get that lovely you can feel a bit of the wood is there, but the actual bread crusty side of things is a little bit more prominent, in honesty. So at the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely smooth American oak in there. You can feel that. Then as you move further forward on that oaky character, you get the wee touch of like vanilla coming out of it, which I think is really nice. So yeah, you've got that little hint of vanilla in there, but then yeah, you get the bourbon layer out of this one, that sweet American bourbon brown sugar, and that really does linger into the aftertaste as well. So the bourbon side of things is really quite sweet. On top of that, you've got some nice kind of roasty, toasty, well fired. Yeah, you've got some nice roasty, toasty, well fired, kind of bread crusty notes out there. But like I say, because it's carafa, it's not too aggressive. Like it's just like a sort of toasty, rye bready bread crust that's in there, and then that sits. It's just got that nice kind of smoothness to it as well, actually. So yeah, you can feel that nice roasty, toasty, well fired bread crust in there. Then you get a sort of layer of rye bread, like so nice German rye bread in there, and the sort of rye side of things has a wee touch of nuttiness to it. Then you get a kind of sweeter wholemeal brown bread coming out of this one, which like I say is going to be the Cara Munich that gives you that. And then yeah, above the kind of wholemeal brown bready character, you start to get the kind of almost cakey type note out of the beer, and I think it's the oats and the wheat that combine to do that. So they give you this really kind of silky, cakey type thing out of the beer, and yeah, that silky thing. The silky thing in this one is really, really nice actually, and that does linger into the aftertaste. So the sort of chocolate sponge cake that you get out of this one, it has that little bit of dryness to it, and you can feel the kind of cocoa nibs and stuff in there. So yeah, you've got that lovely sort of cocoa nibby type character to this one. And then, yeah, so nice kind of cocoa nibby type character to it. And then yeah, it gives you that sort of, above the kind of cakey thing, you've got the more leathery, brown sugary characters coming out of this one. So you've got a layer of kind of toasty brown sugar in there. So you can feel that nice kind of toasty brown sugar. I think in fairness actually, before we go on to that, I think in the sort of chocolate spongy layer that I was talking about, so it has this kind of dry, chocolate spongy note to it, but you do get some of the cinnamon coming out of the beer in that particular part of it as well. So yeah. But on top of that, like I said, you've got a layer of kind of toasty brown sugar. Then you get the more leathery brown sugar layer. So I think there has been a slightly longer wort boil with this one, but again, the sort of silky flavours you get out of this beer could be amplified by the fact that it's about 4 or 5 years old. So we have to keep that in mind too. But you've got toasty brown sugar, leathery brown sugar, then in the dead centre of your palate, you have this nice, in the dead centre of your palate, you have this nice kind of oily, treacle molasses type character coming out of the beer. So yeah, lovely kind of treacle molasses type note in there, and yeah, a wee bit of sweet caramel at the very dead centre of the tongue too. So yeah, the brown sugary notes in this beer are quite interesting. Toasty, leathery, then more oily and treacle molassesy sort of above that. But yeah, all in all, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really quite nice. I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate on this one. As I say, the cinnamon comes out a wee bit into the aftertaste. You get a wee bit of nuttiness and things like that as well. But yeah, really nice Imperial Stout base, this one, and you can feel the bourbon characters underneath. So yeah, remember that with your palate, generally speaking, sweeter flavours will come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. The back third of your palate is going to show you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, but just at different intensities. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the rye bread in the base, the wholemeal brown bread above that, then the more sort of chocolate cakey notes at the very top. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the woody side of the barrel in there, which is obviously a lot drier there. You've got the toastier side of the bourbon brown sugars as well. Then the toasty well-fire bread crust, your German rye bread is in there. You can feel that a little bit taller and lighter and more airy there. Then the wholemeal brown bread sits above that, which again is a bit taller, lighter and more airy. Then you've got the kind of chocolate spongy characters sitting above that, which again are a little bit lighter, drier and more airy as well. So yeah, I like that about this, the way this beer goes together for sure. So, yeah. The other thing is that above that chocolate spongy layer, you can feel some of the drier parts of the brown sugar, you know, the toasty brown sugars and some of the leathery brown sugars just creeping over the top into that back third of your palate as well. Then above everything else, you have the yeasty side of this beer. So the yeasty side of the beer, for me, at its core, it's quite like a grainy rye bready sort of character that you get out of this one. So that grainy rye bready character is there in the middle, then around the edge it's like a sort of more sweet and oily rye bread, and then the very very edge of the yeasty character is definitely more along the lines of it's definitely more along the lines of like a toasty bread crusty sort of thing. So yeah, the way that that goes together is really interesting too, and you get more and more of the yeasty character and the cinnamon coming out incidentally, and nuttiness into the aftertaste. So yeah, this beer does get a bit drier into its aftertaste, and definitely yeah, back third of the palate you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that that goes together I think is really really nice. Yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things with the beer then. So, back corners of the palate, and you, as I say, you can feel some of the hoppy characters dropped out of this, but yeah, back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness there, which is your East Kent Goldings. Then as you move further forward, it gets a little bit woody and a little bit herbal, and then as you move further forward beyond that, you can feel just a little tiny touch of the pine resin there from the Chinook in this one, but yeah, more floral, aromatic, and sort of spicy as you move toward the as you move toward the kind of front corners of your of your palate there. So yeah, nice little bit of floral aromatic spice in this one, and then yeah, a little bit of that toasty, well, a little bit of that kind of lighter, more zesty, grassy character around the front curve of the tongue. But the hoppy side of this beer is quite smooth just because of how old it is. But yeah, let's round off the tasting section then with a wee look at the front third of your palate. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the rye bread in the base, the brown bread in the middle, and the sort of chocolate spongy character on top. And then yeah, the base of the front third of your palate, you've got the woody part of the barrel, the woody part of the barrel, the bourbon brown sugars, the kind of rye bready bread crust, toasty rye bready bread crust, the brown bread, or the rye bread, the brown bread, and then the kind of cakey sort of note. And some of the drier aspects of the brown sugar creep on top of that. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer from the hoppy side of things. So let's look at those. So yeah, as I said, like the lemon zest and the blueberry adjuncts, they definitely come out in the impact side of the beer. But yeah, on the oily side of the fruits from the hops, what you're getting in this one is that at the back of that front third of your palate, in that oily bubble, you're getting some nice kind of plummy notes in there. So yeah, you've got a nice kind of plummy character to this one. You've got some, there's a bit of a kind of plummy character to it. You've also got some prunes underneath, maybe some dates in there. As you move further forward into the middle of that front third of your palate, it's a little bit more sort of figgy, I would say. And then, yeah, as you move into the front half of the front third of your tongue, you get the black currants, and there's a sort of blackberry note just as you reach the kind of front tip of your tongue. And as I say, the blueberry and the lemon zest that come out of this one as well are very, very nice. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we can really say about the flavour of this beer, other than that, like I said earlier, more of the cakiness and more of the kind of cinnamony type character comes out later on, which I think is quite interesting. So yeah, all in all, a really interesting beer, this one, a little bit nostalgic, and it kind of gives you everything you'd want from the flavour. So let's round off the review with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. For me, this beer, it's bottom end of full-bodied. Carbonation's very, very smooth in this one, as you'd expect, with it being barrel aged and with it having sat for so long. And it's got a nice little bit of oiliness to it as well, but it does really show you quite a little bit of dryness, this one. It tells you on the bottle that it's 75 IBUs, and I can see that with it, but the dryness, I think, is one of the things that sort of takes it up to that particular end of the spectrum. But the malt base, like we said, it's a little bit drier underneath, smoother in the middle, then you've got that kind of smooth and dry sweetness on top. The hoppy character gives you that little bit of bitterness, and you've obviously got some really nice fruity notes popping out of this one as well. But all in all, a really, really interesting take. Pardon me. A really interesting Imperial Stout, this one, and quite a quirky release actually, so cool to be able to review this one for you here on Rampant Lion Reviews before Carbon Brews make some big changes. I think there must only be a couple of bottles of this left in the world, in all honesty. So yeah, I think we can leave it there. But yeah, this was a year to forget, a 9.9% barrel-aged, bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Stout, I think, with blueberry, cinnamon, lemon zest and cacao nibs from Carbon Brews in Photan, New Territories here in Hong Kong. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Carbon Brews as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Carbon Brews social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very shortly. Ciao just now.